As the leading country in the world, the United States is known for fostering the American dream. But for many people, the American dream may not be what it seems. In such a capitalist society, some Americans are instead focused on health, wealth, and sustainability. Keeping up with the Joneses leaves some people in a constant struggle to keep up with society, but there are some who just want to live succinct with the earth and step out of the rat race. Some have what might be called alternative lifestyles.
Mainstream America is not encouraging a lot of these sustainable things, although that is changing.
In a lot of ways, our healthcare system is flawed because it's so focused on treating things after they've happened, treating sickness after it's already happened, when a lot of the reasons why it's happening is because of our lifestyle.
We're easily prescribed things for things that don't need to be, that don't need any prescriptions for. Aristotle said that food can be either your best medicine or your worst poison.
Herbs too can be used to treat things after they've happened, but it's also a way to get back into balance before you get sick.
America has an opioid crisis, so with that said, it already makes me uncomfortable because those opioids are the pharmaceuticals.
The food industry and the pharmaceutical industry are very driven by money.
Of course, it's marketable to sell a pill rather than telling you, listen, your diet is not really good. You're eating a lot of fried food, you're eating a lot of this, you're eating a lot of that. Instead of focusing so much on the pill, you should focus on reforming what you're eating.
I just try to keep everything in mind when I'm making decisions, and I am trying to invest as much upfront in my health, and I've seen that work out.
Eating vegan has shown it reduces your chances of any heart disease, and heart disease is the #1 reason for death in America.
For many years, I grew a lot of my own food, and most of my diet was things that I grew. There are all sorts of kind of untangible benefits. The sense of being connected to your life source, I think, is very calming. And
I just know I emotionally am so much happier and grounded when I'm outside and I'm working with plants. If I get a cold or some sort of infection, I have a lot of my own medicines that I already have made that I use. If I can treat myself first and use plants and things that are around me. Yeah, so I mean, just here in the backyard, moving in here, there's a lot of plants already growing that you can use for medicine or for food. This is, common name is Spanish needle, but Biden's alba is the botanical name. And the leaves are actually medicinal, so you can use them for fighting infection. They're antibacterial, so you could make a tea out of them, you could eat them, or you could make an alcohol extract.
America has the third highest ownership of cars in the world per capita. Industrialized countries have 80% of the world's motor vehicles, but have less than 20% of the world's population. But here in Tallahassee, many people are riding against those statistics.
I haven't owned a car for about 2 years, and I grew up biking. I have a picture in my room of my parents with me as a 1-year-old, on the back of their bike.
Even though as a kid, I had mountain bikes and stuff, I would just ride around the neighborhood. So I guess it started then. As a kid, just not being old enough to drive yet, but still wanting to mark out and have my freedom and explore the world. A bike was my first foray into freedom.
I love riding my bike. Just gives me more time to be outside. You're going slower, so you can be more connected to the community.
I became involved with the Bicycle House pretty early when I moved to Tallahassee, and that community has been important to me because the founder doesn't own a car, many of the members who come there don't own cars, and so having a community where it was normal to bike. I mean, there are parents who bike their kids to school and bike their kids to the grocery store, and the entire family doesn't own a car.
I got exposed to the bicycle culture, the fact that there was a place where you could come, volunteer, pay donations, and for parts sometimes, and get a whole bike that you put together yourself. That was pretty amazing to me.
All of our friends bike, so it's a very communal thing too. So we want to go out or something, we all bike together, and it's really fun that way.
To singularly bike around has made like an incredible difference, I feel like, in my social life and my physical like well-being, and just my knowledge of like people. I get to connect with people all the time, just like riding by them and stopping on the side of the road and having conversations.
The difference between having a car and a bike, and then having the option to drive to work when it's, oh, I'm tired, it's early, it's cold, it's hot. You know, there's so many excuses you can have when you own a car. So not having that option has changed things and has made it very easy. I mean, it's like, well, I've got to get to work, so I'm going to get on my bike, and I've got to get home, so I'm going to get on my bike.
And so not having the ability to drive for a while, I was like, you know what? I think I just want to do this. Like, this is how it should be done anyway. And so I like made a vow to bike in Tallahassee.
The benefits are immediate. I mean, there's just, if I bike home from work, I can leave work exhausted, just drained. I've worked for hours, I've been at school, and on my bike home, the action of biking gives me energy, and I come home and I'm just like, oh, I feel so great.
Cooperative living are co-ops. People coming together to live and work and support each other with shared values and lifestyles, often owning land and homes as a collective. Having self-sustaining lifestyles aren't the norm today, but many people continue to strive for it.
There's a certain sense of independence if you own everything that you have and you use, and you're responsible for it.
I earned a living here at the co-op, hiring myself out by the hour to run work parties for people. So this was a good in-between alternative for a lot of people, because they wanted to build their house, but they didn't know how to do it, and they weren't going to just hire a construction company, and most people were not getting mortgage loans to do it. We built this house by, a truckload of wood at a time. We'd never had a mortgage on this house because we built it as we went along.
That started making me think of trying to maybe set up my life where I had no expenses. And then by no expenses, I meant no expenses, like no mortgage, no utilities, no food costs, no nothing.
I wanted to start the co-op because community and connection are the most important things to me. And I want to design a household where, we're working together to help make each other's lives easier and better.
Early on, we were helping each other build our houses. We had work parties. Our house was built by work parties, with friends coming over and spending a day building whatever, at that point where we were on the house. We did that in many other people's homes.
And for some reason, we had a high concentration of people who knew about building construction here. Don't know how that happened. I don't know, maybe the whole idea of this drew people like that to our endeavor. Well, we first started building the house in 1975, but the initial part was building that six-sided shell. That was really the first step in terms of construction. 5 years later, we added a room onto the west side of our house. So in 1986, we built a big porch on this side of the house with a bedroom upstairs. So we built a larger addition and a room for each of the girls on each side of the house. So that was 1990. And then the next and final addition on the house was this big screened porch that we have, and that was in 2005. So there were 4 distinct periods from the beginning of the shell. So that's how we got where we are today in 2017. In the 70s, there were communities being attempted all over this country, and the Miccosukee Land Co-op is one of the most successful in terms of longevity communities that there is in this country.
Some researchers say 12% of America's population will go off-grid by the year 2035.
The goal is to have the house completely independent of the grid in all ways.
I would like to live in a completely closed loop system, meaning that I'm getting the majority of the resources that I need from here.
Coming into the project, one of the first things that I vowed was that I would not heat or cool anything using electricity. One of your biggest power draws in your house is here in Florida, is your AC unit. Things like the kitchen. I actually put a roof window in the kitchen so that at any point you can open the roof window and let the heat right out of the top of the kitchen. There are other things I did in just passive cooling of the house stuff, like a white roof. Well, real simple, like a white roof flex heat. So that was just that simple.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in alternative energies. Eventually, I would like to have this house run off of solar power.
Now, as far as heating, I'm using solar to warm up water. And I basically going to take that water and pump it through pipes. And that's what the PEX was about. Pump it through pipes under the floors. Now, heat rises. So as it heats up the floors, it heats up the room. Just the feeling of the warm floor on your foot actually makes you feel like the temperatures is different.
I want to design ways to collect water.
I do plan to move the water off. When it rains, it catches water off the roof, and it stores it, filters it, and then it sends it to the house.
I'd like to collect rainwater off my roof, although this roof isn't super ideal because it's asphalt, so I wouldn't be able to drink it. But
rain, although easy to grab and capture, could not be the only thing I depended on if I wanted to be completely off the grid. When I talked before about doing my cooling system, and I talked about managing humidity and the cooling of the house, actually that system pulls the humidity out of the air and stores it as well. So from a daily perspective, I would catch rain and store it, and I would be topping the tank off constantly, pulling the humidity directly out of the air and storing it. My goal when I started was when I finish and someone walks in my house, if someone walks in my house and they look around and say, oh, you are off grid, right? Then I failed. Because at that point, it's like, okay, well, basically you roughing it, and that's how you got off grid. But I wanted it to be a situation where even though I did a lot of things different behind the walls, when you was in the house, you just felt like you was at home. Like nothing felt different about it.
Americans growing their own food is on the rise. Households growing their own food has increased by 63%.
Permaculture is a design system based on mimicking patterns that you find in nature, ultimately to create a self-sustaining system. Before I moved back to the States, it was when I was living in Panama, and we were growing a lot of our own food.
I'm also in a situation where I don't necessarily, I'm gonna use the word trust, but I'm not necessarily always comfortable with the choices I would have at a supermarket.
You know, coming here and having to go to the grocery store and look at like piles of vegetables under lights getting sprayed with water and stuff is really strange, you know.
I've grown melons and grown, the tomatoes and peppers and greens and root vegetables from onions to garlic. I've grown strawberries. I've grown a lot of things. Now is the first time that I'm starting to grow them in large quantities.
Right now I'm mostly in the stage of just like observing things, so like watching the way that the shadows fall in my yard, or when it rains, like where does the water go? Is it pooling somewhere, or is it moving through the property? What kind of animals do I have out here?
Yeah, I got bat houses. I got like a couple of them already up on the property. One I still need to hang on the house, and they are to attract bat. They come out every night and they eat a ton of mosquitoes.
So chickens, what are they giving me? They're giving me eggs. They're gonna scratch the ground. They're gonna give me manure. So, and so looking at every single element, how can you design the system so that it all works as one organism?
A lot of times people might ask me like, oh, so what do you use for pesticides? And I was like, well, it's a hard world out there. Like, for me, my pesticides are ladybugs, they're frogs, they're, spiders, they're praying mantis, things of that nature. So the thing is, I don't use any chemicals. So there's a food chain in my yard, and there will always be.
Many Americans are changing their view on life and what is important, with Mother Earth at the forefront of the focus.
Well, I would not like to participate in any systems that are permanently injuring the planet.
Human beings, although we often see ourselves as separate from nature, we're definitely nature, and we're definitely part of that ecosystem.
It all started with a dream for me too. So I get from a lot of people like, yeah, one day, or that's what I want to do, or if I could, or I dream of. I get a lot of that from people. Whether you believe you can or you can't, you're probably right.